Well, it appears there's something wrong on the other side. I guess Nighthawk will have to take a look at it if they can find him. If you're still there, Dawnjah. I know they were rustling stuff up in the kitchen, and he probably just gave up on it and decided to take a nap and forgot about everything. Thought everything's under control. Everybody's doing just fine. I'm gonna go get a little bit of sleep.
Can you hear me right now?
I can hear you just fine. But apparently there's something wrong in one of the streams, or yeah, I'm not sure what it is. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, the funny thing was, they were doing something. They were getting ready to rustle something up in the kitchen, and Hawk was going back and forth, and I think the wife said, "Just stay out in the damn kitchen, all right? I'll do this." And Liz started playing some music. Actually, some music from a few generations back, quite a few that I recognized, and I think she was getting to like it, getting comfortable, and forgot it was getting towards the top of the hour, 5 o'clock. And I was enjoying it too, and I looked at the clock and I said, "Oh my gosh."
So she probably didn't hang up the server, huh?
Well, that was my first thought.
Oh, but you called in and you're connected.
Right, but I called the server and I'm connected, so. And I know I got an earlier message about 15 minutes ago from I produced Eva's show after yours.
Oh, yes, and she's not coming, I heard?
No, something came up, and so she's not going to be able to do hers tonight, so, I was kind of like, okay, what am I going to do for those 2 hours?
Well, why don't you just do a round table?
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, to get an idea of what's going on in their world, how everyone's adapting.
Yeah. How everybody's adapting to all this crazy stuff that's going on. Jeez,
it could be more involved in time travel than we know. With, the sandy hood on the map, Chelsia was thinking that way, and that crossed my mind. And the aurora in the city buildings of that movie before it happened. I mean, maybe somebody was giving us a warning or something, and that's the way they would do it, sort of like crop circles or something.
Well, and all that crazy stuff is going on in the northern part of the continent there in Australia. I hear floods again.
Yes, far north Queensland's getting hit, hammered.
And, you get it loud and clear now, so I guess they can hear you in the chat room, so go for it.
Okay, well, welcome to Breaking Through to Truth. Sorry about the delay. You never know what parallel we're on. So this is where the tides meet the sand and the ocean greets the rain on this day of rainy day. This is the 33rd parallel around the world on the Revolution Radio. So you can join us at freedomslips.com in the chat. It is Sunday, the starting of the last week of January 2013, which is just amazing to think about. Great. Grids are being recalibrated little by little each day, sometimes a lot. New grids will affect and will get lost in the overall new resonance that is coming to the planet. There's new resonance fields mixing with all kinds of fields out there, and outdated paradigms are being dissolved. It may not seem like it. However, there are changes in the happening. This is the time where intense energy of heightened fluxes are occurring, along with capitalized on the emotions of everyone riding on the planet right now. Emotions are high, and we have to know our thoughts are very important in all of this, and it's time to release any part of your thought pattern that doesn't serve your whole well-being, because this thought pattern will lead you to the next part of the path, which is very, very quick in the time of the whole resonance energy coming out and meeting with a harmonic force outside yourself. So some may be feeling headaches or nauseousness, dizziness, or feeling a wavery motion as this recalibration occurs. I just checked the NOAA site of the magnetic fields. In this pictorial magnetosphere grid, they have a picture of the vibrations coming out of the northern pole of the Earth and the southern pole of the Earth as the Earth is moving through space. And the south line seems to be flipping over the north from time to time. This grid, when it's shown in its natural balance, shows, I'm trying to find it right now. Let me paste it in the chat here, see if this one works. Okay, here it is. This is the app from NOAA, and you can go to Magnetosphere and then slide the bar over to, and you'll see a rainbow picture of a blue and yellow and red picture. And then you could put the date in there for January 27th or 27th, and you'll have to put it in 15 seconds before the time you want. So put it in for, it'd have to be UTC time. Anyways, there is a little bit of a wobble, so people may be feeling nauseousness or some kind of headache or an uneasy feeling. That's normal. Just know that we will move through it. So in this time of change, opportunities will present themselves. Just get ready for the connections when these opportunities arise. Because the question that I want to pose is, do we keep doing business as we've always had done business in the past? Or is this a time right now where we can make a choice and make a different kind of business for our utopia that we want to create? Should we wait around at home and wait for a job to call us? Or should we make initiative and move forward in this changing time to create something with this energy behind us? Well, I'm going to move forward in creating something that I haven't created anywhere. So everything's an experiment, so I will know more about that. Whoops. Need to pause for a moment. Well, now that the time schedule was all thrown off, we are here at a crossroad, and we are at a similar crossroad that has presented itself in past experiences in this time that we're in.
This sounds like you have company.
Yes. Well, the time schedule, we were supposed to do it in a commercial, but, we're flexible around here. So this crossroad that we're at, it seems like, to me, like there's a crossroad with what kind of world are we going to be moving towards? Are we going to be moving towards hold on to the energy fields and connect with our Earth Mother, aligning our energies with people around us and reaching out to people in a compassionate way? I think more of that needs to go on because there's fluxes in our consciousness as well as the fluxes that are happening in this grid. The energies are shifting down south here in the Pacific Ocean near the coast of Mexico. There's a tectonic plate movement happening underneath the ocean there, and a volcano is being releasing steam vents underneath the water there. So the sooner we get our soul fragments together, the better off we are to create a new balanced reality with one that we can welcome the outdated paradigms. How do we plan for the future? That's a question that's been coming up. Every day seems to be many things happening in more of the now movement. And you've reached us. This is Breaking Through to Truth. We've had a little technical problems getting this show started today. We're talking right now about the changes that are happening in our world. Do we go on conducting business as we've always had conducted business when everything seems to be falling apart? People put in applications online and they sit and wait for somebody to call them because there's no address or phone number that you can communicate to see if they even received your application. That seems to be an endless wheel that seems to be spinning out of control. to the point where maybe the inertia might be creating something else. So this is the time now when the energy is high and much is happening in one moment. Therefore, if anyone has an inkling to start their own business, I would take the risk and see where it goes. And don't worry about anything about it not working out or getting sued or blah, 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 all the ifs. So it's changing right before our eyes, and it seems to me that the technology is on the quicker of the draw. As an energy gap is being created between people who have technology and are moving real fast with iPads and communication devices that are, almost at a faster rate than just a snail mail letter. So it might be that if people aren't on board with it, that this separation could disconnect them in a certain way. So we have very innovative ways to communicate, and that's why on Revolution Radio we're welcoming everyone to come on to the chat and give us your feedback of how do you plan for the world in today's 2013. This is the last week of January 2013, which is not going to come around until 2014, the next time around. So it's interesting how maybe the changes that are going to happen in the future are up to us. The connections we make here on Revolution Radio are connections that we can use in the future as well as in the present to communicate and make connections. So it seems to me that this division of the human psyche, the ones that are heavily deep into a running pace world, like if you had 4 hands, you would have 4 cell phones on each hand and doing the quadra movement of 4 times as fast. You can create an algorithm for your own life and what pace you move through it and what decisions and kind of situations you end up in. And many people are in tight situations with court. If you deal with court, my energy of prayer goes out to you, and try to keep it all in balance and be level-headed. There's no room for emotion in the courts. But that is our prized possession. Humans have an emotional quality that you could see it in the fluxes of consciousness that are happening right now. In fact, there was a soccer game in Egypt, which our prayers go out to them. Over 70 people died in a fight that took place in the crowd. Then there was people apprehended, about 47 people apprehended and taken to court, and 23 of them have been given the death sentence for so-called starting this rebel-rousing ruckus where people died. Then people went out to the streets, and they said 30 people died in a ruckus with the army there in Egypt. So they are heating up, and people maybe make rash decisions on, maybe their energy will just force them to go somewhere. But it is coming down to our thoughts. What do your thoughts dictate? What do your thoughts go through when a situation arises and how you react to that or act? We don't need to react to any situations that are or perhaps will occur. But in times of rises and falls of all civilizations, there seems to be an energy flux, and people do revert to war in the past. However, even the simplest bacteria has not even thought about peace. Okay, they are sitting there warring with each other and adapting and becoming something new, and keep on warring on the on the host. So the host will have to change in order for that bacteria to stop proliferating. Therefore, it seems like there are new vibrations that come to the earth. There will probably be more, and bacteria all vibrate at certain frequencies. So there'll be new bacteria probably arising. And there seems to be a fungus in the air that can proliferate in regions where there's, not enough sun and colder climates. So that depends on the energy of the environment and where perhaps we are in making various growths happen. Therefore, I think we can move ourselves up to a reality. I mean, really, if you hold an energy of love and compassion in your heart, even when you're standing in line at the grocery store, you can really feel who's feeling a good vibe, and you don't need any words to say that. And that's what's unique about the human condition, because the human condition can feel, and that's where our power lies. And that's why this whole energy matrix game of trying to control our emotional quality. And if they can't control you through crop circling, or not crop circling, sorry, from dust spraying, and different poisons in the air, they try to confine you to a box where you feel ill all the time. People can't do anything if they feel ill. And that is, the worst kind of sickness, when your body temple kind of starts breaking down. However, it is nice to rest when you're in that state, and you do get good dreams. So put your intention out if you need to recharge, and bring up the next part of yourself. A lot of people say, too, that if you get sick, your body's just recalibrating something that has caused to make a force upon it. So it's just all a matter of balance wherever we're at. And depending on where your balance point is, that's where your path exists in life. And some people are on the extreme edges, you may say, and maybe they balance that with an extreme consciousness, or you can look at it as left and right brain, the left hemisphere being more analytical and the right hemisphere being more of a creationary tool, and music and poems. And our human condition is really created and evolved from the right side of our brain. And if the right side of our brain and our heart really took the front seat and the driver's seat right now, and then let our analytical brain take the shotgun seat, no pun intended, but to just keep a balance and maybe readjust the balance. They say this is a time of more of a herstory instead of a history. That's a unique kind of phrase to show that the feminine aspect is probably going to become a little bit stronger in this day and age, when we're balancing the polarities. Throughout history, and rises and falls of civilizations, there's been a matriarch and a patriarch. The fall of the Roman Empire, there used to be patriarchs or matriarchs where the women actually were in control of the politics of the time, and the men were actually in charge of, hunter-gatherers and protecting the home front. So this division of human psychology that we're experiencing around the world, it may be pleasant where you are, and it may be a little out of balance in other places. But I think people here in America have learned to balance, are learning to balance many polarities, many situations that could arise with just multiculturalism in itself. And if we realize that this multiculturalism, like in the book, the Grand Chessboard, I'll get the guy's name in a moment. He says that one of their modes of operation to bring down a society is to infiltrate that society with multiculturalism, because it will never find a balance. Well, there is a point in history where this balance can be maintained, and it will be maintained if everyone does not fall into the polarity programming that is out there and forcing us through the television to actually accept. I have many friends of multicultural status. I went to college with the Khashoggis, and they're the princes of Sudan, the princes of Saudi, and the princess of Sudan was in my business class, and another prominent family came from Jordan, and I learned an extraordinary amount of information from my friends overseas. But this whole division that is trying to be created for us to fall into is one of their paradigms, one of their tactics and modes of operation to bring down civilizations. Just know that we need to start, breaking down that paradigm, just smiling on someone who maybe perhaps doesn't look like us or doesn't believe the way we do. And this also break down a belief structure is another thing that they do. And, taking God out of the situation when the source of all things beats everybody's heart on this planet. The source of all things makes everything grow. The whole synergistic relationship with the earth and the sun react together so we can have life here, which is amazing to think about. We're eating the plants that give us the life, and their cellular structure breaks down to the molecule, and it's still spinning and giving us life. So also in this time of intense energy, if you want to eat meat, it's okay to eat meat, but take digestive enzymes with it so your body doesn't have to work as hard. And if you take a starch and a protein, your body's spending lots of time, 12 to 14 hours, breaking down the food substance will give you energy in your body. So eating a lighter diet is probably the best thing if you're feeling down and out, or like you need to make a change in your life. Try something new. But I want to get back to the division of human psychology and the theocrats and the technocrats. I read an article recently that it said that computers and the technology, the rate of technology was moving 8 times faster than the human genome. So I thought about that being, okay, we created computers, or with the help of maybe some people we haven't met yet, but computers, our creation is moving 8 times faster than we are. Well, then our consciousness should probably be at a level to where we can accept that responsibility. Responsibility is one thing that's being thrown out in this time of adjustment, or trying to be readjusted. The victim consciousness seems to be prevalent in many of the stories that are on the news. People need to take responsibility for themselves and not sue over some $12 sweater that got damaged in a dry cleaners. But these laws are changing as everyone brings up new issues to the honorable judge to decide for us. So therefore, change can happen, and the influx of people who believe in many different ways can also change societies. But in this time, we have an opportunity to realize this and to be consciously aware of what is happening and how the modes of operation are trying to bring us down certain pathways that perhaps we don't want to engage in at this time around. We probably came from many lifetimes and many reincarnations and have a memory with us that remembers certain episodes in life that perhaps how we can change, and little deja vus that open doorways to where we can really be in our memory mind and our access the information from our Rolodex. So I wanted to ask Chelsia about this consciousness that perhaps was in existence in the division between the theocrats and technocrats that have taken place throughout many times in our history. So how can we adjust and use this trend as a way of maybe changing ourselves so we have a different experience? Or do we just run for the ride and just allow everything to allow us to be the observer and not engage in any situation? Or do we become the creators and make the pathway prevalent so all people can follow?
Well, that was very long of a diatribe. Human physiology, from the time we're born, even from the time of conception, we are constantly reorganizing our genetic code and adapting. So whatever is happening out there, whether, we look at this as these cycles that are laying down grooves that have been laid down before, if we look at the history of Atlantis and things of that nature and whatever history that has come of that, the one thing for sure that they have to offer us is the fact that there's always been duality here on this planet. And the duality at present is no different than the way it was back then. You have your technocrats, which are your scientists, and all those that are looking to forward external technology here on the planet. Then you have your theocrats, which are dealing with the evolution of the human spirituality quotient here, which is the most important aspect of our human evolution, because the way I see it right now, everything that they are, and the they in quotes there, are those that are seemingly have a holding pattern on our human psyche and our evolutionary status because of the grid out there in social consciousness, is here to keep us in fear and keep us in the lower chakras that are dealing just primarily with survival. And that's the lower end of the pyramid structure that they want us to stay at, because as long as we're down there, we're feeding the whole, paying our taxes, as long as we're not a useless eater out there, they don't care. You know, we're just another number. And this is global. The human value system here has saddened, it should sadden the whole of mankind to know that we are so expendable at one level. And that could care less. And so spiritually, you know, the theocrats out there are a few amount, I'm talking about percentage-wise in accordance to the whole of the population, which are holding the spiritual grid together. And one thing for sure, though, is that the spiritual thought, or the one that's dealing with the evolution of the human physiology, psyche, soul development, all those are tied hand in hand, have a very strong wave out there. And the compression waves that we're feeling, not only the breathing of the planet, in-breath and out-breath, that are occurring because of earth changes out there, which are occurring because of sun changes out there, which are occurring because of star changes out there, and everything coming from galactic evolution. You know, we're just this little tiny ant putting ourselves through the struggle of survivalship again, when we should be a little bit further down the road of our own personal evolutions here. How do you break this cycle? You can only do it one person at a time. Each person has a responsibility to spend a little bit of time going inward and asking for the guidance system that is so inherent in each one of us as to how we are to go about completion of this journey.
Yeah, well, completion of the journey or journeying through it. I think we're at a precipice now where we're at a crossroad where we can make a choice on what we do with everything. Do we go get a job and put an application in? Or do we make something happen? Or do we just sit back and enjoy the ride? I was trying to get the chat back on. But we should really be able to, well, let's connect with, perhaps, thirdly, we need to maybe learn the behavior of where we're going, or like the true earth. For example, we could probably be like a child left in the woods, and we're raised by wolves and, you know, by the primitive and uneducated. Maybe perhaps we can work together to know what we do.
Well, I just think the soul's going to remember no matter what. If you give it the energy and the vibration, it will dive deep into the Akashic record to know that we were evolved at one point and we de-evolved. It's almost like saying one step forward, two steps back. And we're just discovering that we de-evolved. And that's the big surprise here.
Yeah, that is a big
surprise. We're on our journey rediscovering that we fell backwards. Whether you want to call it a fall from grace or the fallen angels or what, you know, we at one time were far more advanced than where we are now. And we now have to regain, whether it's the Akashic record that will supply us with some of this way to do it, or we as individuals have to contribute to the whole cell of the embodiment of Mother Earth here in order to see that all of humanity is going to experience this in a unification. So it takes a very few to start that and trigger that wave going. And it's been happening. You know, most of us feel in a sense that there is a lot going on. But I don't want to settle for the rhetoric. I just want to be the change I seek. If everybody still took on that particular, I would say, that being the one that you need to triumph within yourself, then we would be a lot better.
Right. Well, and that is a way to be flexible and adapt to changing lives. So if we, what do you think about these? Do you think that maybe we'll have memory of other aspects of ourselves that could be perhaps riding on the same timeline as us? Or do you think that's a question that is just too far or unknown to even tap into.
Well, you said the same timeline. I
Yes.
believe that there are multiple timelines occurring. I mean, when you look at the geometry of a hyperdimensional cube, you have a minimum of 3 timelines converging, minimally. Now, if you look at all the other geometries that have to deal with, the spiral connections to the Akashic record here, this is the important aspect that all of us should be asking during our meditations. When you go deep within, what are you asking for? What information? What education are you seeking? What visual experience that will teach you? I mean, that's what meditations are for, is to go deeper within the human psyche and dig out, I would say, the memory of who you are and where you're going. And all of that is known to you somewhere, as long as we can get out of survivalship and move on up to the different chakra centers that are aligned with the higher brain centers that give us the chemistry to open up the third eye vision and the third eye experience. And the more we do that, the more that is ingrained in our human psyche. So, the Oversoul 7, if you want to look at it in terms of that, all things are occurring simultaneously within the scope of your personal reality to tap into your personal history. And if the future is what you're seeking, then you create it in the moment. You jump into it.
Yes, that's why I think creating at this level now is very important, because I do feel an extreme energy out there when you take into consideration, different people around the world are experiencing weather changes. Those energy fluxes in itself is just an amazing pattern that we are experiencing. But I would say everyone around the earth, around the world right now, even in our conscious mind, there's many things taking place. I know it's rhetoric, but I keep thinking of what we see on the television. Now, that could be maybe true or false, but there's sides that are being taken with, the different factions that want to control this planet.
Well, anything that's on the TV is the spin doctors. Remember, who owns all of the television and the radio stations? They can spin your information that you receive any which way they want, and they can create the crisis, even much like they did in Egypt this time around, just like last year.
Right.
It's all being spun to a degree that's, I think the Egyptians are far worse than they were under Mubarak. Now we've got dictators just of another type.
Well, yeah, I heard that they're the people who are wanting a new situation over there, like more modern and moving forward in a reality to where dogma doesn't control people's way of thinking so much.
They're looking for equality.
Equality.
The feminine
yes.
aspect wants to be equal. They see it in a global way in modern countries, if we want to call where we're at as far as, laying a precedent down for.
Yeah, there's all levels to the game depending on wherever you look, right?
But, the feminine energy is so repressed under Sharia law that they're a second-class citizen, and they could care less.
Yes, well, this whole soccer game, everyone went out to the streets because they were... Yes, you've reached Breaking Through to Truth, and we are located at freedomslips.com on Revolution. We welcome you to come into the chat at freedomslips.com and join in the conversation there. And we are talking about changes that are occurring in our environment and how consciousness has to change to evolve. And what's our next step here on the planet when we know that change is inevitable with the worldly affairs that are taking place at the moment, and perhaps different currencies could fade into other currencies, or there's lots of energy and power being exchanged these days. So we're going to look at the definition of the organism. And I'm going to post it right here. So if we look at what the definition of an organism is, in biology, an organism is a contiguous living system, such as an animal, fungus, microorganism, or plant, and at least some form of all organisms are capable of response to stimuli, reproduction, growth and development, and maintenance of homeostasis as a whole, as a stable whole. So if we look at the world as being like that, the Earth is continually changing and adapting to various stimuli that are acting upon her. For example, different nuclear settings, nuclear bombs, nuclear fluxes would have a change in environment to the Earth, and so humanity adapts. And we should probably be eating more kelp and iodine to help our thyroids adjust to that change. But so consciousness is changing, just like everything changes that goes through a growth period or evolving. Speaking of which, a dolphin had some wire and fishing line trapped in its fin, and it came upon some divers, and it went right next to this female diver and turned his fin so the diver can cut the wire off of him. So he consciously knew that that person was going to help him. And that, to me, is a sign of a consciousness advancement. Yes, we have more technology now where we have underwater cameras and we can record all that. But also there's monkeys that are using sticks to hunt for their food. So they're using a tool. They are evolving as well.
Planet of the Apes, huh?
Yes, Planet of the Apes. So, and consciousness does change by the movies that we watch as well. You know, if you take into account all the movies that are out there, it's interesting to maybe analyze many possible futures if that could be set as a precedence of what consciousness is interested in.
Well, Hollywood is nothing more than an extension of the cult of Dionysus. No, it is one way of putting out a point of view that is stimulating people to think. But often, those points of view are slanted, or there's more information than necessary to throw you off the truth. So it becomes more entertainment than it becomes a truth-bearing form of educating the people. Nonetheless, very, entertainment value is there for most people, good movies. But that doesn't mean that should be our source of education.
Oh yeah, I think people should be doing what floats their boat right now. You know, they should be in joy or finding an avenue to experience life to its fullest. And that could be any sort of situation you're in right now. They maybe don't have to change. But some people might be feeling that they should change and do something to where perhaps they won't have any regrets if their lifetime is over tomorrow.
Well, the way I see it is people are looking for guidance. They don't know what to do.
I think that's true too. That's another.
The question every day is, where are they going to seek their stimulus today? If they're not doing the mundane workload of the 9 to 5 or whatever your shift is to earn your tax money here, then, they're busy asking, how am I to be entertained? And, they're posing the question out to the television and to the movie theaters and to whatever aspect out there is willing and able to give you a forum for entertainment. And sports are big. We're coming up on Super Bowl day. How many thousands and thousands of minds are going to be watching the Super Bowl?
Yeah, so if you're watching the Super Bowl, send out a message of peace. Well, Let's do it.
Unfortunately, all those millions of dollars worth of commercialism going to be part of the reason why people tune in, so they say. In those commercials, you don't know what subliminal messages are there. Is it more than just consumership? Or is there other things going on behind the scene that you would call will fall under the disguisement of mind control? And super heterodyning, It is a type of wave that can conceal another hidden wave within it. And now that we have digitized forums out there in the, television signals and things of that nature, you'll never know what signature information is being passed through the lines. And if they have control of it, that's the bigger question, is you'll never know. And as much as we all like at one level to be entertained, because there is some good programming on out there if you look far and wide and hunt for it, it can open you up somewhat. I'd say to most people, turn it off.
Well, I think, the more we help each other to heal and evolve, be pleasant around each other, the more powerful life force we can have. And as that field will increase, and every individual will be in that field. And that could permeate a whole new, let the experiment take place in the United States, and let's see if we can show how it's done.
We've been one big experiment for the last 200 years.
Yes, and I believe that this was why the cherry is on top here. Let's see if we can continue that. Most civilizations, I guess, have a record of, no more than, this one in today's age, we're 200 years plus, 20.
When your country has a revolution, you're alive.
Oh, well, yeah.
Our country is asleep because we are so entrained in entertainment or work. Basically, that's the two balance or opposite side of the coin there. And because of it, we're too busy to really think in terms of where we are as an evolutionary species here, and what we're given as the jewels of the brain chemistry contained within to allow us to rise above it all.
Well, that's why we adapt. That's why all species adapt to any stimuli that comes upon it. And, I personally, for one, I think of myself in situations where if there's a riot or something happening just outside my house or something, eventually you will be pulled into it if it's around you. I think that's, or you could just walk away before it even gets started. I think that's why we probably should not have any attachments to things. Because if we did, but then you think, okay, well, maybe I need to support, protect my household, and maybe I can make it through it. But I think flexibility is far more important than holding on to something now.
Well, the last time I feel that this country was alive was during the time of the Vietnam War protests, because we had a purpose, we had a cause, and we all united around it. Now that there is no draft, and it's not necessary for our men to go to war, they do it voluntarily. And most of the people that are even joining armed forces today are coming from third world countries with promise of citizenship. So, there's a whole different
reason why.
An underpinning of cause. And
yes, so that's the belief structure. There's many belief structures put into one cosmic soup.
Well, what I'm saying is, we're not united for a common cause. I mean, even right now, there's information out there that will, that should inspire you. I mean, today, I think in San Diego, they had an unveiling of the chemtrail movie. How many people will get to watch it? How many people will be triggered enough to do something politically about it? That is the big answer, and how much of our complacency is based upon boredom or apathy.
It is this common cause. And then people are given different reasons why the common cause. For example, the common cause of, in America, to have a free will society where you can be an entrepreneur and start your own business. But now we have taxes and forms and papers you must buy just to stay in business. So how free is the free market? And what are they going to do to change that whole capitalistic view as being like a handout service? If it becomes a handout service, that's not capitalism. Capitalism is where we have the freedom to do. We should get rid of all the tax codes that prevent people from opening a business. Can you imagine how it will be if everyone's allowed to just live their dream and open the business? There's roadblocks, but I think that if everyone came to a common cause of why they are here in the United States and other places around, where there's democracy, well, the true democracy, where is that?
Well, what if you find out the truth out there. Wall Street. You've got maybe a couple dozen parent countries out there that are globally interested in making their billions of dollars in every global market, that our market here is totally contrived and controlled, and it's all inside information. So that's going to be the downfall of the so-called free market, because, the truth is, it doesn't really exist. It's only there in a contrived way to stimulate and to get people to throw their money in so somebody else can take it.
Well, it seems like when you were saying about digital, how everything is digitized. I mean, we have a currency system that's digitized. They would probably want us to forego the paper currency just so they could digitize it and they could put it in a different form. They could just write it on a computer that it's a yen now, and we have to follow the relationship of how the yen is taking place. They could do so much more in a digitized world to cover up this illusion of what is happening and taking place.
Well, it was stated when we first got our first debit card, when was that? Back in the late 80s, early 90s, that it would take maybe 2 generations to implement it. We're already on the 2nd generation here, and eventually they're going to win. They're going to win because the banking companies will just make it be so that everything is money created out of thin air, and it's just nothing but an exchange of digits from your account to the next, how you pay for things.
Right, and with a little click of a button, that will no longer be there, or that could be changed.
And so the real free enterprise is never going to be there anymore. It's all about them taking, their portion of the tax dollar away from you.
Well, that's why when we were talking before about AI, computers are moving 8 times faster than the human genome. And this out of balance seems to be a place where we can either partake in it or not. If I look at the future, I see that perhaps the healthcare bill that's going to be enacted in 2014 is going to be a make or break situation. It's going to be interesting what happens when that is forced upon us. And considering there's been 14 to 1,600, I heard both, IRS agents that are being employed to impose that tax, which it is a tax.
Collect the tax.
Yes, collect the tax. And so what's the next step for that? And the RFID, it could be a situation where you're injected with an RFID tracking device so they know what blood type you are, if you have 2 kidneys, or if you have 1 kidney, or how many of your organs are available for resale. I mean, that's an extreme, yes, and we're not saying that that's going to take place, but it's a probable with how everyone values money. If they value money, then money is sometimes gets in the way of what moral code is. People have to outweigh what is it to be a moral person, and it seems like life these days with the scientists disappearing and different factions that are happening in our world that perhaps could blow the whistle on things and tell the public what's going on.
Well, let's look at one plausible scenario here. The human spirit is crying out for evolution, and it can't be heard. Then those energies that are put out there are not going to fall like a forest tree, a tree falling in the forest and nobody hears. What's happening is that it's going to create a different type of revolution. And it's going to be enacted by the earth energies. If you were to take consensus, literally, for people that were, I guess, awaiting a major shift or a major paradigm of thinking that should have occurred at a particular time frame, and they were all awaiting this, 2112, winter solstice that we just passed through. Now, most of us knew that it wasn't. Yeah, depending if you're in Canada, you're going to say it differently. You're going to put the month before the day. So the 21st of December was a moment in time when a lot of people were let down because they were waiting for something to cosmically shift everything to bring about balance again. Well, it's not going to occur like that. Unfortunately, I think that the cries of spirit out there are going to allow the earth changes to take place. And that's going to be the cleansing.
I think perhaps that is a plausibility, considering also I heard theories from people that if we as humanity reach a new balance, then perhaps the earth will too, if we're synergistically connected with her. However, we have never done that experiment before that I know of, and it seems like consciousness is in an extreme situation, and the laws that are being passed seem to be getting geared towards what a probable paradigm for they that want to control us, so to speak, are headed for. That girl in Texas that didn't want to wear the RFID tag, well, the judge voted that the school has a right to make her wear that tag. So that would set a precedence for any future laws that may arise from something of that nature. They're going to bring it right out in the open. Like, if, the best way to let a rattlesnake bite you is to let it go out in the open, or make it seem like it's friendly, like a wolf in sheep's clothing, like it's going to help you or not get lost or protect you. There's all different paradigms that will be created, so people will not know what the truth is.
Well, they want to tag everybody, so everybody's under the control. Everybody will be under the big Skynet there. It's more like these futuristic movies than in regards to that. And, who's crying out? Who's saying, we don't want this? A majority of the people have to do that. And if it's just a small amount, then there is no revolution. Those people are easily squelched and rounded up and put into, a camp. And they have planned for that. And, if this whole scenario seems disheartening, it is about kicking people in the butt saying, wake up. What have you done today to load the grid so that we, as a human species, are evolving in the direction that allows for us to have freedom?
Well, and then where is the freedom? There was a recent story about a smart meter that was being installed in this family's house, and they refused to have it. Well, the people that installed the smart meter came back with the police, and they were forced to have this smart meter installed. So this is like one little aspect of, okay, leave it to the police, they can enforce it, but it's up to our sheriffs and police if they want to go along with this paradigm that's being created here. I saw a very interesting video with 7 sheriffs from Northern California as well as Southern Oregon that got together on a panel, and they really expressed their concerns about the different laws that they were supposed to be enforcing by the federal government. And many of them stood up and said, no, we don't do this. We don't work for you. We work for the people. That was a very inspiring video. So I think a potential avenue we can go down is to allow our sheriffs to really be aware of the overall picture. Now, they're probably in their jobs doing their duty every day and not see the whole picture, because usually the participant can't see the overall day-to-day activity of the laws, the emergency executive orders that are being produced. And I think more people are waking up now, though. And when it comes to the gun law, I think more sheriffs and cops would realize that if they take away our guns or are told to take away our guns, then they will be next, because there's probably another ruling class over that level that wants to take the land again, back to another country perhaps, like one that we owe a big debt to, like China perhaps. It just keep your eyes out about where everybody is on the game board. Why is China buying up property that's around the perimeter of the United States and also having ports down 60 miles? Well, they have a headquarters 60 miles south of Laredo, Texas. And they also have a port which is more south of there in Mexico that they own. And they own one in Long Beach. So, and then there's that truckers highway. It's that's slowly being built little by little. Who knows what are in the Mexican trucks that drive across the border with relatively no checking out of the cargo. So there are changes. There's potentials. There's probabilities that are changing. And with each facet of information, a tapestry can be painted to perhaps what's going to happen or what kind of changes we may see. And so I just checked on my passport today, and I'm good for another couple of years before it expires. So
what does that mean? You're not going to be RFID chipped on your passport?
Well, that's probably already taken place because mine's a semi-new one. But, anyways, there's changes occurring, and we just can be aware of the changes and discuss them here in an open forum so everyone can give their status about what's happening in their section of the world.
Well, I look at this, if we do not have an internal spiritual revolution at an individual level, then we might as well throw in the towel.
I think you're absolutely right. I really do think it's about our evolving consciousness. And, growing up in the United States, taking a year here to go to another country and come back, it's amazing what we can learn here. We have many cultures. I love the food. We can get Thai or we can get Chinese any day of the week and Mexican food. And it's just nice to experience life from that perspective and culturally mix ourselves with everyone. If everyone follows the same guidelines that, freedom to do what you will as long as you don't harm another, I think should be added in there. But some people's belief structures don't want other belief structures to be able to express themselves. So it comes to control and different various ways of trying to control the masses. In Behold the Pale Horse, William Cooper goes through many scenarios that could take place in today's time. Now, this book was written in 1991, and in there he has an interesting passage about chemtrails and how the military came out and said that he has documented research of all the acquisitions and bills and things, and he warned us of what potential future could be. And in this book, Behold the Pale Horse by William Cooper, he does say that the military said that this is a way to control the masses, is to do sprayings of any bioweapon or nerve gas that may be plausible for the time. And breaking through to truth, and we'd like to take a few moments to ask for donations so we can continue to be on the air 24/7. You'll always find a show that you can listen to, even in the wee hours of the morning, because we have hosts from around the world that are delivering information from approximately 5 hubs around the world. So if you'd like to donate $5 or $2 or $10 or $20, feel free to go to freedomslips.com/support. And there's a PayPal button. It makes it very easy. So today we're talking about how do we plan for the future? What do we do as a society in this section of time that we're living in, where perhaps you want to go your own route. You don't want to be part of the game that's control and coercion out there, or so how it looks. I think that this is why it's a pertinent time in evolution where we have the consciousness to be aware of what's going on and learn from the rise and falls of civilizations in the past that war and criminality, I guess, or war does not work. So the concept of peace is one that the humans really have an opportunity to enwrap themselves in that trait, to express that peace is probably the way that we all should be considering in this changing time that we're living in.
I would love to know what the history is of mankind. What was the greatest duration of peace that we have seen as a species? It seems like we have been wrapped up historically in one war after another.
Yeah, I watched a documentary about when metal was formed, and they started using metal for tips of arrows, and it became, everything was based on making the next weapon. And we're still in that reality today where they come up with Tesla's energy, of free energy, and they want to make weapons out of it. everything's dealing with a weapon. And I think it's the people that are putting these programs forth that really have the most intense lessons in this time that we're living in. They really haven't listened to us or have experienced that life can go on if we don't make a weapon.
And this is not geared towards the masculine population out there, but this is a patriarchal society still. And as long as it remains that way, where you do not have the nurturing effect of the matriarch that promulgates life in a way that life is precious, then our species is doomed to, I would say, consume ourselves.
Well, yeah, look again how they changed consciousness through that. Also, the housewife is no longer a housewife. It was looked upon as being a demenial job. And now housewives were in the workforce. And then now more housewives are getting into the military. And they might even decide to put women on submarines. And, you know, it changes consciousness as we go through life in which, you know, we allow. But it is true. It's that nurturing aspect of humanity that is being, you know, shoved under the rug, so to speak.
You know, we all have duality within us. We both have masculine and feminine. It's just we're choosing to allow masculinity, even in the feminine side of our species, be the dominant factor here, which is promulgating, lodging offenses around the world that we're calling policing the world. Or, you know, they're all war. It's all about death and destruction and control.
And once you start policing the world, where do you go from that? Lock us up in shackles on trains so we don't get away?
but here it is. It's the hand that controls the puppet. And it's all for the global corporations out there having the long arm of their corporate status
That's
in
what
power.
It is. That's why I say I think that if we develop jobs, I think I'm going to really try to focus on making T-shirts and, you know, other things and let the money go towards Revolution Radio and everyone who has a voice and trying to make another consciousness be birthed. We do have to maybe tap out of the whole monetary system or, you know, because they do have control over the whole monetary system at a click of a finger now that it's digitized. But also we need to do business in a different way where nurturing and, you know, the whole idea of customer service going exponentially.
You know, there was a time throughout humanity that, especially during the cult of Dionysus, that people that were artists and musicians didn't pay taxes, that they were considered the cream of society and
like
were
the court gesture.
And were held in great status along with, you know, your priests and those that were, you know, in charge of the philosophical point of view for the world at the time. We have fallen so far from that.
Yes. And
now musicians are looked upon as, you know, dime a dozen out there. And, you know, the artistry
when
in
it's
each
the creativity of each piece that their soul is able to shine forth.
Yes, on an individual level. But the audience out there, you know, it's more and more difficult because of the population.
Yes, consciousness is shifting, and it all comes down to the schools and the indoctrination service of taking away the whole art program. And children these days would look upon that as being, you know, like a weaker form of service.
Well, I look at it as the musical industry kind of corrupted the artistry in people and kind of broke the heart of a lot of people that were just doing it for the love of it. And so if you do it as to support yourself, you know, your chances of making it out there are very slim.
Yes, and the means of supporting ourselves.
You have to become a corporate whore. That's what it comes down to, you know. The term whores of Babylon, you know, it's all out there. You know, you have to become a prostitute for those that will make money off of you. And that's basically it. So you sell your soul to the devil, literally, at one level, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you have to make compromises within your artistry in order to be heard.
Well, yeah, because, well, things are based on money. We need money to survive, to live, unless you grow a garden and trade or, you know.
Well, I'm just glad that there are forums out there, like, you know, Internet Radio, for one, Revolution Radio, has a unique forum. If we were to use this to the best of our capability we would be sending out through the airwaves all of this signal to load the grid out there to encapsulate a larger and wider audience. And everybody should be doing their share to do that.
Yes, well, changes are good, and we move from that. Perhaps all the hosts around Revolution Radio can get from different coffee shops and hold a live radio telecast in the coffee shop and ask the people in the area, do you know what NDAA is? How do you plan for your future? And just pose some questions, perhaps to teenagers, would be a great way to know where they reside and what they think the world is going to be. I asked a teenager that recently, and he says, yeah, in the past you thought it was just going to be so perfect and everything was going to work out. And now I don't know so much anymore. It just seems like anything can happen, he said. He was very, disconcerting towards the future.
Because our spirit is being broken.
Yeah, and I think we have to do something so that doesn't happen.
Well, it could take, the unique minds of people. And I think in terms of, there are a lot of unique minds putting themselves on the line there. You've got Benjamin Stewart with Chromatica. That was a wonderful movie. A couple of years ago it came out.
Yes.
Keep playing it.
Yes, keep
let that be a rehearsal in your mind for what we're under the thumb of, so that we can keep shifting and moving out of that.
Yes, and this is a transitionary period. I don't think anything is cut in stone. I think it is flexible. It's dynamic. That means it moves to where the energy fluxes and molds itself. And if we realize that the war aspect, we do not, have a revolution in a negative way, if you want to say, but perhaps stand up for our rights, but then that could escalate into something unknown.
Well, the war machine, the way it is now, with drones and things of that nature, where there's not necessarily a great loss of life, they can, we have it all over third world countries out there that we can annihilate them. But it's really not about that. It is about the global corporations cleaning up.
Yeah. They could take people out at a whim, and then they don't have to have a trial by jury. If they had a trial, that person just showed up deceased.
Well, it's about creating the crisis, coming in as the saviors now, setting up the corporations, loaning these third world countries money that they'll never be able to pay back, and all the money goes into the infrastructure that goes into the pockets of the global corporations. And who has to pay all that? It's on the backs of the young.
Taxes.
Well, third world countries, we do, they still all, it's all about the pound of flesh. What's that worth?
Right. Well, when it comes to money as being the opposing force to leveling the field of a pound of flesh, I think money will win out right now in this world. That's why people like us have to, I don't know what we have to do exactly, but the time will come when we should be ready.
Well,
so just talking about
1933, go back in history, our government sold the soul of this whole aspect of what freedom was supposed to represent. They sold the soul to the devil when they allowed for the global corporations to reenact this whole Federal Reserve.
Yes, that was a big turning point. And different people in our history wanted to stop that. I heard John F. Kennedy wanted to stop that, and look what happened to him.
If we do not have the value of our efforts in the form of occupation and workforce out there under some kind of standard, whether it be the gold and silver standard again, it has to have a standard that can't be diluted by printing money out of thin air so that the bankers can turn around and loan 90% of your money that gets put back into the bank so that they can keep on creating their interests when they know that eventually it's a pyramid scheme. It's going to fall. And it fell hard a few years back, and our government bailed them out. So, if that is the beginning of the end, what's supporting it? It's a house of cards right now.
It is a house of cards. Also, the Earth flexible magnetic field and the different steam vents that are being released is a flexible house of cards. And the magnetic field shifts that have been moving about It's
I
interesting.
think that's spirit crying out, and Mother Earth is answering. And, it's all connected to the great source field out there. And, if our minds are a great energy, we don't even realize our own power. Your thoughts are powerful. Everyone's thoughts are powerful. It's about being impeccable to the thoughts that you have.
So the ancients looked at light as being a connector of all things. And if we think of that concept, if for example, we were camping, you would really notice when the sun came up, you'd be thankful for it. So in that aspect of how, and then in the evening time, they lit fires to connect that light right at sundown. So the fire would be the light that connected you through the night. And somebody else on the other side of the world is going to have light where there is a fire pit on the other side. So perhaps we can use that as an experiment of consciousness. Every time the sun goes down, everybody just think of peace, like extreme peace, and see everyone, shaking hands or putting down their weapons or some kind of form of peace. Just visualize it in your mind and let your heart radiate that whole vision out every sundown. So when the sun goes down, it will be coming up for somebody else. And we can also do that at sunrise too, and connect the whole concept of consciousness and this revolution that we're on. And, we might see some results from that experiment, because we know that the Heart Math Institute has been doing experiments with the connection of the consciousness that's residing on this planet.
Well, it may happen to the point where if the grid goes down and we get struck with an X flare out there, we may not have electricity to light up the night skies. And we're going to be thrown back into that, time period where we're up by sunrise. And
then you'll know what you're thankful for. A warm down comforter. Just something simple where you didn't think about it before. But we are in changing times, and to be able to adapt and be flexible and adjust is the main reason why we're here. That's how organisms grow. That's how we, as our consciousness grows. And our different vibratory rates enables our DNA to hook up different parts of our body so that we can see the world from a different perspective.
We're not going to grow as long as we're in survival mode.
That's true. Even Dr. Lipton says you have a survival protective mode or you have a growth mode. And when you're in the state of growth, you have more blood in your visceral body and inside you that's going forth to help your cells grow. But you're in protection mode, your blood goes out to the extremities of your hands and feet so you can basically run or get away from the situation. Or fight. Yes, flight or fight, as they say. So if we are in a state of growth, be in a state of awe, of beautiful, creative energy. We know that the creative spirit is what vibes this whole earth. Her creative spirit, the more you take from a lemon tree, the more she gives. And everyone will have food. There is no lack. Many texts have told us that through history. So we need to get rid of the worry, get rid of the feeling of lack, get rid of the feeling of don't belong, and just go out to the world and make a change of ourselves in every interaction, every situation. Laugh or smile if you can't say anything to a stranger. But, we need to change ourselves. And talking about it is a good thing because we all get ideas and communicate on a different level on the whole infinite lines of creation, which wraps around the revolution. So we can use this mode of information and communication to evolve consciousness, because it's hard to put down in words, or it's hard to take a test about, it's hard to be in analytical mode and discuss it. But we know that we have feelings, and people are being more sensitive now. Yes. Blonde Giant says, also every morning, first thing I do is find one thing to be grateful for. That's a very good thing. When to be grateful is one that opens the heart in a spiral way, and people have shown that connection. And that connection can connect all hearts around the world if they're open to that frequency to receive that resonance. And there are no boundaries when you move up to a level that includes all people and you have compassion and respect for all people in their growth and free will, that all the lessons they take to evolve here. But we have a few moments left, Chelsea. in this last week of January 2013.
Well, this past week we entered into Aquarius. And that's important because it's about the mental airwaves out there. And science is a very big issue in the Aquarius age. And moving us along a scientific evolutionary placement amongst, I would call, galactic societies out there, we've got a long way to go. And we have to remember to keep our science in balance with our spiritual nature so that the choices we make in science are one that we will not have to worry about for 7 generations. Does not harm our planet, does not harm our children, because the children is humanity. Every generation brings forth the next generation. And that's our responsibility.
Yes, and Dr. Carl Kallman's work is showing that a generation is much quicker than it was 65 million years ago. Now it's 20 years equals, or 10 years equals a generation, where 20 years equaled a generation before. But time is still compressing, and it's moving into where things can shift quickly.
Well, a generation is only equal to that of our ability to procreate. And so...
True. Yes, Roe versus Wade. There was the walk of life on Washington, D.C., and it wasn't even publicized.
And just remember what also is out there, the patriarchal point of view, is to keep the matriarchal point of view at bay. So that, there are so many things now to keep women from procreating. To stop their cycle, to keep them from the choices of, following through with their inner nature. Which is to bring forth, their replacement.
The nurturing. Yes. The nurturing aspect, every human being. That's why if all of us really took that nurturing spirit into consideration, if we're at the bank teller line or, the grocery store, we could make a difference. If it happens exponentially across the planet, but we do have to be out of the state of fear and worry and survival mode. But it's all about our consciousness shift and what we're going to do with it.
Well, yeah, but look what we're up against. There's so much in the evil chemistry to keep people sterile